service to this country, and Veterans Day is for those who served this country. So I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to those veterans that you know and love and care about. Just do a health awareness check-in, and if there's any kind of activity that can be done in support of veterans, really the best thing is an individual approach and being personal, one-to-one. So again, just as we approach the holidays, just be sure to reach out to those that you love and care about, and those that you know of in the neighborhood, and really just take the day to remind them that they're valued members of your life, valued members of the community, and sometimes people just need that ear. So thank you.
Thank you. I have no public comment either. Any public comment from the public this evening? Seeing none, we will go to our first appointment. It's always fun when we get to do something really exciting and to recognize achievement. So tonight we have the Lunenburg Little League U12 team with us, and their run for this year's Little League tournament, at which they actually advanced the furthest that any Lunenburg team has in their 69-year history by getting into the championship round, but first by winning the District 3 division, and then by participating in the playoff rounds. So we have them here. We have a citation for them, and what I'd like to do is read the certificate, and then I'm going to read off all the names. Now, I know some people aren't here because they're involved in other sports, but I'm going to read them up. And as we read them up, if you could stand in a place that when we're all done, we can, the selectman will pose with you, and we can do a photo if people would like. So it says a certificate of achievement is hereby presented on behalf of the Lunenburg Select Board to the 2021 Lunenburg Little League District 3 champions. In recognition of earning a top 12 ranking in the state of Massachusetts and advancing further in the tournament than any other Lunenburg team in their 69-year history, playing 8 games, scoring 70 runs on 97 hits with 14 doubles, 2 triples, and 8 home runs with a .418 batting average, which is incredible. Presented here on October 5th, 2021. The members of the team are Nate Ailes, Caden Chow, Ethan Dion, Lou Dumay, McKinley Dumay, Simon Garcia, Chris Cadis, Cameron McWalter, Jacob Melvin, Jordan Samet, Connor Speck, Ryan Whitney, Gabriel Wright, and Michael Wright is the manager. We can have you stand as well. And Stephen Chow is the coach and the league president. So I want to thank you all for your fine achievement this evening. I want to thank all the players, obviously, and their parents, and the coaches, and all the people who attended. I think it's a great thing to put time and energy, and sometimes it's overlooked, into physical fitness and athletic achievement and teamwork and all the hard work you put into it. It was a great run, and the whole town, on behalf of the board and on behalf of the town, congratulate you on that. And hopefully you will be in the next, I don't know, is there a U13? What's the next?
They aged out, so.
Oh, okay. Well, this is a great way to be, the top, go out on top here. So congratulations to you on that. And we'd like to do a photo op. So if we can ask the selectmen to go and. Oh, sure.
May I approach?
Please, Coach Chow, please.
Hi, I'm Stephen Chow. I have been the president of Lunenburg Little League since 2013. And we did say that it has been the furthest that we've gotten in 69 years, so there have been teams that have come before us, and there have been 4 teams, including them, this team that has won a district. So what we did as we kind of went through the history, we decided that we are going to memorialize all of them up in Marshall Park for their achievements as well. So we've got 1995, 1974, 1967 going up on the snack shack at Marshall Park, and these boys, so when they bring their girlfriends and their parents and their children and grandchildren back there, they can point to those signs.
That is excellent.
So their achievement.
Now, you will, I guess we should make sure that these get to the park commissioners and the
Yep.
park department
Yep.
to do that.
And one more thing for you, can you bring those up and hand one of those to each of the commissioners, please?
That was for you, I think.
I don't know if they have.
It was a nice jump.
So sorry if we're going to mess up your hair for the photo opportunity, but...
Thank you.
What hair?
I'm glad I still have some hair to mess up, so.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're going to come down there. Okay.
Oh, yes. So I have a big head, so.
Someone up front can.
Get them first. I'll make sure
Please go.
Make sure you can see everybody.
Right?
Paul, see Chief.
Good job, guys.
Congratulations, guys. Good job, good job. Congratulations.
Thank you for the gift. That's awesome.
I'll join you on that one.
Good idea, should put a hat on. I didn't think of it. I messed up my hair.
What time do you?
Thank you.
One. That was a long haul. I left it like,
You work at the worst.
yeah, I left it like 6:50. It was horrible. So,
Yeah. I was about to ask you. Okay, announcements. You have announcements.
I do. The Finance Committee has their public hearing on the special town meeting for, it's going to be held on Thursday, October 14th at 7 p.m. in this meeting room, and also through Zoom. And just to let people know as well, the food pantry has moved officially from the Public Safety Building to the TC Pasio's kitchen space. And last and not least, Halloween trick-or-treat hours will be Sunday, October 31st. So it actually lands on a weekend this year from 6 to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
aren't the Red Sox playing the Yankees tonight?
They are 8.
Is that an announcement?
That's a really important one.
I think that's on in 45 minutes, right? 8 o'clock? Let's
go.
All right, so we'll try to make this as expeditious as possible.
And remember,
I don't want people choosing between the two of us.
there's no crying in baseball.
Let's see what the result of the game is first. All right, 7:15, a meeting with the finance director regarding a vote on a ban renewal.
There's a lot of signatures, just to make sure.
Okay, time's up.
First, we got to approve it.
I know, this is going to be fast. How do I compete with the last presentation? This is boring.
Win the championship, that's what you do. Did you win the finance director division this year?
I did. I think I did.
I think you did too.
Okay, I'm here just to talk a little bit about the ban that we're looking to renew on October 14th. You have the note that needs to be signed in order for us to submit it to DOR. I can tell you that at the present time, we have a ban outstanding for $609,996. This is made up of $225,600 for the purchase of the Saliba property and $384,396 for the purchase of a ladder truck. On October 14th, when the note comes due, the financing option that we chose was to do 5-year ban with an annual pay down. So on October 14th, the $609,996 will be paid down by $152,499, and the amount that we're looking to renew is $457,497. And that's made up of $169,200 for the purchase of the Saliba property and $288,297 for the purchase of the ladder truck. We took the bids for the note, and the interest that we will be paying is 0.4%, and this note will come due next October.
Just for people at home, could you remind them what a ban is?
A band is a bond anticipation note, but one of the things that we chose to do when we financed this project was to issue a series of bands with an annual pay down.
Okay. So, does anybody have any question for the finance director?
No questions?
So I would,
Wants to see the game, so I'm going to say no.
I would entertain a motion on the request for signing the ban as presented by the finance director.
So moved.
Second.
I assume that means to approve. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so there's lots of signing pages.
Lots of signing to do, but
All right.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
We don't have any interviews, appointments, reappointments, or resignations, do we?
Just to announce 2 resignations. Dave McDonald has resigned from the Personnel Committee. So Elaine, I asked her to put together a thank you letter for Dave to thank him for his service on this committee. The other resignation we received today was from a reserve police officer, Chad Statler. He's unable to commit to the hours needed for the position.
Okay. I think I signed the letter for Mr. McDonald, so that should be able to be sent out. Okay. You want to do your town manager report?
Was that 5?
Yeah, I think
Ahead
it's
of
6.
schedule.
Yes.
Okay. First, I'll start off with the existing vacancies. There are 2 vacancies on the Architectural Preservation District Commission, 2 vacancies on the Commissioner of Trust Funds, multiple vacancies on the Economic Development Committee, one vacancy on the Senior Work-Off Program Committee, and one associate vacancy on the Zoning Board of Appeals. Anyone interested in serving on any of these boards or committees can fill out an application form that they can find on the website and complete that form and send it to the Select Board's office. There was a vacancy taken off this. The town moderator appointed the citizen at large to the capital planning committee, George Martin, who used to be on the
Oh, okay.
finance committee.
Yep, good.
Jesus.
Current employment opportunities with the town, there is a board committee clerk position, which is a part-time, non-benefited position, digital service staff librarian position, which is a part-time benefited position, assistant to the sewer business manager position, which is a part-time position at this moment. Special town meeting will look at making that a benefited position. Trash and recycling coordinator, which is a grant-funded, part-time, non-benefited position. And more information on each of these positions can be found on the job posting, which are located on the town website. FY22 budget updates. New growth was certified at $430,254. We currently estimate a surplus of approximately $39,000 for FY22. Due to the impending retirement of the principal accounting clerk in the town accountant's office, and after discussions with the finance director, that the position should be an assistant accountant to provide for succession planning and someone that can step into the town accountant's position if she were out for an extended time. One of the FY22 budget amendments will be to ask for a transfer of funds to support this position with additional hours. We are currently advertising for an assistant accountant at 24 hours a week, and if town meeting approves funding at the special town meeting, this position would increase to 32 hours a week. The IT budget will be another budget that we will be looking for an FY22 budget amendment for, and this will be in order to provide sufficient funds for the identified network equipment and security needs. This transfer will also address a backup plan in the event we do not receive the Community Compact IT grant. The DPW director informed me that the consortium bids for road salt were received and prices increased approximately 38%. This will impact our FY22 snow and ice budget, which we are allowed to deficit spend. The good news is that we didn't use much salt last year and have a good amount in reserves. In the way of grants, the 2021 Community Enrichment Grant, the Council on Aging Director had applied for a $20,000 Community Enrichment Grant through the Community Foundation of North Central Massachusetts, and was notified last week that they awarded Lunenburg Council on Aging a grant of $7,500 in support of their application for outdoor recreation area behind the senior center, which was to make it ADA compliant. Update on COVID. The weekly update from the Board of Health on the total number of new cases reported as of September 25th was 84. The current positivity rate for Lunenburg as of September 25th was 7.43%. In other meetings, events, and announcements, the last day for the Lunenburg Farmers Market is this Sunday, October 10th, from 10 a.m. until 12:30 p.m. on the Ritter Lawn. And the fall special town meeting will be Tuesday, November 16th at 7 p.m. at the middle school, high school. And warrant articles were due last Tuesday, so that is closed, and that's on the agenda for tonight for discussion.
Thank you. Do we have any reason, or were we given any reason why road salt was up 38%?
No reason, that's how bids are.
Are people not working the road salt mines enough or something? I don't understand how road salt, you don't have to process, you just have to like...
I think it follows a lot of things. Yeah.
I guess, yeah. I just didn't understand. I also just want to give everybody a word of caution about the positivity rate. So our rate is 7.47, where the greater Worcester area is like 2.5. So we're like 3 times greater than those areas. So I don't know what is leading to this, but I guess we have to, be more cautious to get this down. Of course, we don't have any numbers, and we're not given numbers on hospitalization or seriousness, which would be helpful, but still a positivity rate way out of whack with the rest of the area isn't very good, so. Any other questions for the town manager?
I have a question
Yes.
in response to what you were just commenting. Is a positivity, I don't know the answer, is a positivity rate based on who tests?
It's on all the testing that
Right.
occurs, so,
So, okay.
It's how many people test positive against how many people are getting tested.
right.
Yes.
Okay, so I mean, there could be other variables at play in terms of more people getting tested, or,
Potentially.
yeah. Okay.
I do not discount that, yes. Anybody else?
Do we get that data on the
No.
percentage of the population that's been tested compared to other communities?
No, not that
Okay.
I'm aware of. I
Yeah.
don't think that's on the dashboard
Okay,
statistics.
all right, thank you.
We do get percentage vaccination, the percentage of the population by age group.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is not a posted hearing, right? We can start this 5
No, and I
minutes
don't
early?
think they're
Are you
doing-
expecting more people?
We have one online
Okay,
and none.
so if you don't mind, we can start at 7:25 instead of 7:30?
I don't think it'll change things too much.
Okay. Does anybody want to start off on your department?
Can I first start with Dave Blatt Green? And we do have a vacancy on the Green for a full-time member as well as associate, so please add us to that.
Okay. There you go.
And the other side of that is I felt like we don't have as many people getting tested as Worcester itself. Because if it's looking at 7% of the people tested are positive, we don't get as many people that are testing themselves. Well, anyway, Dave Blatt, TC Passio's Assistant Chair. Okay. So we wanted to come to you guys and talk a little bit further on the warrant articles for the special town meeting on the 16th. We approached you guys of 2 articles that we'd like to put on as far as the committee, and then a suggestion on a 3rd article for you. The 2 articles that we're looking to have on would be to do a review of both the original proposal, which would be to rehab the building, and then a like-kind review of what it would be if we built a fresh building, tore down and built a fresh building on that. That's the first article, so it's more of an article to just review the findings that we've had, what we've done as a committee, and this is to try to get a feeling for the for the town of what apples and apples comparison of rehab versus new. The second article is to actually bring forward the idea, the rehab, bring forward. We've done a lot of work on this. We've agonized and worked hard on this, trying to get the numbers to where we felt the best numbers we can get, and we'd like to get a decision from the townsfolk as to whether they're ready to move forward with with the article of rehabbing the building, once they have all the data. And then the third article would be if the town decides not to do the rehab, if they would like the plans that what we are getting for the for a new building is more of a estimate, a financial estimate, so that we can make an apples and apples comparison. However, it would be the third article would be on based on the Board of Selectmen's what they would like to do. And whether or not they want to move forward with funding the idea of a full set of plans to build a new building if that was necessary.
Okay. So I would open up a discussion. I will open up the floor to discussion about, I don't know if we want to address these one by one. People want to have a general discussion and then vote on them separately. I am open to whatever format the board feels is necessary and appropriate. Mr. Franco.
I think that J is the first one. I'm sorry, it's J on ours. The first article is just pretty much a no-brainer, right? I mean, just to hear the report. So I don't think that's controversial at all, right? No. So
It's not controversial to me, no.
Yeah, so-
Hearing a report from the committee is something I
yes.
think is certainly
So I
appropriate.
think we can dispense with that one pretty quickly.
Right, any objections to not putting, okay, so let's say, let's consider J approved without objection. Okay, so now, and we're reading off letters, of course, as they're enumerated here. These won't be the final numbers. So we're left with the one, now, am I to understand you correctly, your committee is promoting that we put K on, and L, the second one, which is raising the money for rehabbing the whole building? And then the next one, you are not promoting, you're just...
Well, K, we feel that as a committee, we can bring that in front, where at the request of the selectmen, we're willing to bring that in front of the town for a vote, and this would be once they had the review of both a rehab and a approximate idea of a new build, if they would like to still proceed with, since we have a set of plans ready to go, if they would like to proceed with the rehab.
Okay, so you want that one to be on?
We would like that, yes, to be on, so that this way we can make a definitive statement as to...
But L, you don't?
No, L, we feel that L is an art, right now what we're looking at is that K is based on the footprint that we have today of TC Passios. It's based on what we felt was the maximum use of that building, getting as many, both the town offices, the school functions, the community functions, as much as we could to get out of the square feet in the original TC Passios building. We are looking at it as also as, to do a like-kind review, we felt that we would look at just the same exact function in a new building. We do feel that, so that would be for K. L kind of opens up a new worm in that if you are doing a new building, what do you really want to have in a new building? And we feel that that was out of the scope of our committee, which was the TC Passios Reuse Committee, and would be now into the scope of, of the folks of the town, of what they would, what they would want. So that would be to raise funds to look at to develop plans for a new building, whether that would be the same function as we have today, or what we're proposing today, or whether that would have less or additional functions in that building.
Okay. Anybody want to start?
Well, so essentially what you're trying to do is give the voters two options here on the same day. Is that correct?
We're trying to come to a definitive option on the rehab of the building. Okay, and we felt that at the last town meeting when we presented and did a review, we were only presenting a rehab, and the numbers are interesting numbers. And we felt that it was prudent for us to look at doing a brand-new build, because this is how old is the building now?
69,
67, I think.
8 years.
Yeah, so say 60 years old, just for lack of rounding up. So it's a 60-year-old building, and, the idea would be what would it be to just be able to do a new one, which might give you some different cost for maintenance and things like that.
If I can also add to that, Mr.
Sure.
Blatt. I think the idea behind L, as we're looking at it, is that the committee is proposing that language to the select board, for the select board to consider, but not, because it's outside of the purview of the TCP Design Committee, it's not being recommended to go on the article, because that's not something that the committee feels as if they could recommend to propose to go on to the warrant. So they're saying, L, this is something that select board, we should talk about, think about, rework this, or go in this direction or not. They've put together draft language for us, but they're saying really punting L over to us, and they're saying J and K is what they'd like to have on the, ultimately what they'd like to have on the warrant.
Mr. Franco.
There's a certain logic, I think, in having K and L, if we put L on there, not be decoupled from one another, that they be decided at the same meeting. So what are the thoughts on that, just among the board members? Instead of doing this sequentially, because it's sort of an either-or thing. You're never going to get to L if people vote yes on K, for example.
Mr. Dwyer, it looks like you wanted to say something.
Yeah, so for me, this seems to be a pretty simple proposition. It comes down to dollars. If we can build a new building for comparable dollars to a rehab, then I would think we'd go with a new building. But until we have those numbers, we can't really make an informed decision. So I guess from the committee, I want to know is where's the architect stand with providing an estimate for a new building? Is that going to be provided ahead of time? How in-depth is that estimate going to be? You alluded to the fact that the estimate for the building is, for a new building, would be of a similar footprint as the existing building, but we may not necessarily need that much building. So I'd also want to see, what a cost per square foot for that building would be if we could do, or have them say, if we could do a 50,000 square foot building and it's this cost, and we could do a, 35,000 square foot building, which we think would meet all the needs that the town has, and it's this cost. It might not be the same cost per square foot, but it might be a savings to the town to consider that. And without that, I just don't see how we can make an informed decision on either of the articles.
May I address that a little bit? So we have developed a floor plan for what a new would be, trying to it reduces some parts of it, utilizing a second floor. I don't want to do too much of the presentation right now, but the idea also in that building is to make it so that if there was needs further, that it would be a building that something could be done with it without the extra cost that we're having today, extra cost we have today and things of that sort. So we're trying to look at the second one. I agree with you. We're trying to get a square foot number for a comparable usage of the building. I have to say, it's not as much the square footage, it's more the usage of the building, putting the same exact usage in that building. Just trying to utilize the space better for that. Then that square foot number, I agree with you that we would look at it as what would it be for anything else, whether that's minus or less for a building at the same time too.
Do you know if that information will be provided, that we'll be able to, put it on town website prior to town meeting? Because that's a lot of information to consider just in the special town meeting. It's nice if people are interested, if they can get that ahead of time so they can consider it.
So Mr., we actually have planned for our committee to actually have almost like a town meeting to review things before town meeting. I'm using the wrong term, but a town hall, so that people can come, kind of get some numbers, get the feeling, ask questions, so that hopefully at town meeting, some of those things have been already addressed by folks, and so that we're not there till the wee hours of the morning, to say.
Did you want to?
Yeah.
Mr. Jeffries.
So I'll come back to your question. So, Mr. Franco, so for K, I mean, as a member of the TCP Design Committee, the contract with the architect was signed, I think at the end of August-ish time period, beginning of September, somewhere in that range.
End of August.
Yeah, end of August. So the start on this was a little bit later than I think we had all hoped and expected. So we expect that we'll have that number for sure as we approach town meeting, and as Mr. Blatt just stated, that there will be, the intention is to have a public meeting to kind of go over all that information. I think the idea behind K, as far as appetite for L, so L, which basically says we need money for construction documents. That's the gist of what L says. Looking for funding for construction documents. My expectation at town meeting this spring was that the additional funding for this, which I think was about 45 minutes to an hour of discussion at town meeting, was on that funding article, was that the $54,000 was going to get the town a comparison. That the TCP Design Committee said, look, we have this number, $23 million. It's eerily close or over a new build. Let's look at that new build. And that's what we're currently in the process of doing. All that information, I think, will be available at town meeting to have all that there. And given that there have been updates over the last two years. I think it flows that we've said that, hey, this is the last piece before the town should vote on this, and now we have that last piece, and so there's nothing else that stops the town from making a decision, because they'll have all the information. What L does, and I do think that all three should be together, what L does is says, hey, now that you're looking at this cost that's going to be whatever amount of dollars, now that we know what the new build will be, if we don't vote for rehabbing this building, should we get money to start getting construction documents for this new build? And to me, that makes sense to do it in that order. And so I have an appetite, to answer your question, Mr. Franco, I have an appetite for us working through L, the language that's proposed, and fine tuning that, so that way we could go before the town with all three articles.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Franco. Go ahead.
Thank you. So let me just, so I understand, because I think this is a really important piece of information. You're saying that by the time special town meeting occurs, there will be estimates for rehabbing the old building and a new build.
That is correct.
All right, because to me that would be a gaping piece of missing information. Like, if people wouldn't know whether intelligently to vote on L or not, like if they had no idea how much a new build was going to cost.
Agree. So that's that. We look. If you look at the schedule, if it was the end of August, that contract was they'd have to have it done by the end of October. However, we're looking to maybe have that a little bit sooner than that, so we can put together the numbers ourselves, put together a presentation with the right information for everybody. Because we have to separate the hard costs, soft costs, like some of the things of we're just the furnishings inside the building, as well as just the building itself. And I want to separate those two when I present it to the town, and to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll weigh in very similar to when you guys were here last time, and my thought process hasn't changed. And that is, I too agree that they have to be on together. And I think that, well, let's start with the premise that the whole purpose of putting all the money and all the time that we've put into it is to have an end goal of have something happen to the building. Anything that jeopardizes anything not happening to the building, I will not be for.
Okay.
Okay? With that as a premise and needing people to see the comparison of the two, I think it is premature to put K and L down for many of the reasons, or some of the reasons that Mr. Dwyer pointed out. So getting the number this late, it is now 6 weeks before town meeting, and we don't have a number at all yet. That number is going to take time to disseminate. It's not going to be like we're going to put it on the website and the next day 11,000 people in town, or the 7,000 potential voters, are going to go to the website and read that and come prepared. It's going to take a while to disseminate, but also it's going to bring up other considerations that didn't exist with the rehab. That is, if we have a new building, as Mr. Dwyer pointed out, maybe we don't have the same exact square footage. Maybe we look at other options. Is everything that we tried to put into the rehab because the building footprint existed, do we want to recreate that same amount of square footage? Maybe we don't. And that's a discussion that takes town input and it takes time to have, and that will educate the town meeting voters to a decision. And I don't think it's possible to have that discussion in 6 weeks in time for a special town meeting. So I think that no matter what comes out of it, there's not going to be enough information to do it. And so I don't think we're giving people a real choice. And my fear is if we put them both on, either they both could fail and then we're nowhere, or one passes, but then there's a whole big discussion about, wait, what is the size of this building that the new building that we're looking to build? I'd like to go to a place where we have that discussion and we can present in multiple meetings, in multiple fronts to the town, and present them with a real option that says, listen, we want to get something done and we need you to choose A or B. Because if you choose none of them, after you have all the information, then we're going to be, then nothing's going to, then we're going to start at square one, and then nobody should complain that nothing's happening to the building. But I think right now, there's going to be enough non-information available that becomes just vote against one, and then later on, we'll say, well, this wasn't addressed, this wasn't addressed, this wasn't addressed. So we've waited this long. I'd rather, there's no, the number, sure, there's inflation, that the number that we have for the rehab, obviously because of the cost of materials and the cost of inflation goes up. I understand that. But the vote is the most important thing. And it's a hurdle we're going to ask the townspeople to authorize a lot of money for whichever option we choose. And I want them to really be aware of everything that is in front of them at the same meeting. So for that reason, I will vote not to put K or L either. Obviously, J, I want to have on. I want to know the information that you have at this point so people can begin to digest it and we can begin to have a dialogue until annual town meeting. And that gives us plenty of time to ramp up, I think, a recommendation that I am not ready myself to even give at this point.
If I may.
Mr. Jeffries.
I respectfully don't disagree with you. I think that the path that we're on, there will be no new information gained between November special town meeting and spring town meeting, that portion of work is complete. I think that there have been updates to the town at every town meeting for the last 2 years. The TCP Design Committee meets twice a month. Right now, they're meeting every single week throughout the month of October. There's an article in the paper that comes out about every other week about an update on where the TCP Design Committee is at. And there's an escalation cost. So I think that we're on this path of moving forward to building a town hall. And so I'm looking at it from the view of, right now, the escalation estimates are 4% a year, which on a project that's estimated at $23 million, that's almost $1 million a year. So let's take this in 6 months increments, which is the distance between our special town meeting, our annual town meeting, roughly. So what are we, every 6-month delay is a $500,000 increase in cost. So what are we buying for $500,000 between November and next spring? And I think that everyone who wants to be informed, that the information has been out there. It's already there. I think that we've exhausted, I don't know how many hours we've spent at town meeting over the last couple of years just talking about this one building. So I don't know if I think that the campaign to educate the public has been in place already. I think that it's been effective. I think that there's been high participation from members of the community at TCP design committees to vocalize what their concerns are. And then specifically as it relates to letter L, which is this the best location for a new building? I think that is a question that this board needs to take up, and I think we need to take that up soon and have an answer to that before special town meeting. In my opinion, I think we're marching down this path. We're already going in a direction on the old primary lot. We don't exactly have a lot of available lots available to us in town anyway. I don't think this needs to be a lengthy conversation, but I think that there's adequate time for us to formalize what we're already doing, which is moving forward with a town hall that's on that property. So again, I respectfully disagree with you, Mr. Chair, on this one. I'm ready to move forward with all three.
Mr. Chair, if I may. All right, so you may recall from last time that I was pretty firmly in the same camp as Mr. Alonso, for sure. But I'm finding a lot of what Mr. Jeffries is saying pretty compelling. The end result is, I don't know what to do at this very moment, but however, are we voting this issue tonight anyway? I mean, we still have to work the language of L, correct?
One would presume.
So are we actually voting whether to put these three on tonight? I mean, or is it no, I mean, because we have to finalize the form of L, yeah?
We can decide we want to put them on, and we have the ability to work the language until we go to print.
Okay.
So in somewhat, it's a principle of, do you agree with the strategy or not? And first of all, to Mr. Jeffrey's point, as a counter, I would say that if you haven't been to a lot of town meetings, there's one definite way to defeat an article at town meeting, especially a money article of this nature, and that is just create confusion, make it confusing for people. And if I ask you right now, so what is here we are, 6 weeks before, what is the cost of a new building? And then if I say, well, why, if it's going to be a new building, why does it have to be the same square footage? Have you determined, has there been any determination about making a smaller building? And what is the cost of that? So maybe that offsets the $1 million that you're saying we're going to lose in inflation, but if we build a smaller building, maybe we save money. And these are all questions that people are going to say, well, we haven't done that. We haven't had that conversation. And that's the formula to have people vote against it.
Okay.
That's my point.
Okay.
Mr. Blatt.
Okay. So that perhaps the phrasing on K is incorrect. K is basically right now, the way it's phrased is whether to move forward with the rehab. Perhaps on K, there needs to be some language in there to look at it as whether we rehab or look new. Because right now, as the committee, our job was to come up and say, what will it be to rehab this building? We can present that to the town.
Yes.
And we would like to bring it to a vote, because this committee looks like we've worked very hard, worked together, put many hours into this, and we would like to, we're ready. There's nothing else we're going to be able to present to this town in regards to that would alter what we're going to do, what we plan on doing at town meeting. I don't care about the publicity. You can say the numbers aren't out there. It's not long enough. The folks who are interested will read the data when it's available and have an opportunity to review the data before town meeting. We will put any format you guys would want to get that together. But we feel that it's prudent that we get a vote at town meeting on whether we're going to proceed with the rehab or do something different. And that's as simple as that. L is the difficult one, because L does open things. I agree. If you're doing something new, what do you do? But that is part of the review and the presentation of J, where we talk about this building, how much square footage is being used for the different folks, the different areas, how much of the cost that is, what that cost would have to be if it was not in this building, what would have to happen to do that, trying to give all that information to the people during that presentation so that they're educated for why perhaps the schools have this much square footage and what would have to happen and what would the cost to them be if it wasn't in this building, if it was somewhere else. Why, what the benefits of the community kitchen, the Lions Club pantry, the town and school offices together, and all the different programs. We'd like to be able to present that to the town, but we're basically done. We're looking at it as we've worked hard, we've put this together, and this is this is what you brought us together to do, was to bring to this town a number for rehab, which we could have done last town meeting. However, we felt it was not prudent to not look at it as what would be rehab versus what would be rebuilt. And we feel this town, it was the thing to do as a townsperson, was to look at what would it be to rebuild. And that's what we're going to bring. We're going to bring to the townsfolk the education of what's going to be in there, what the square footage is, how much per square foot, and and ask them what they want to do next. And that's it.
I don't disagree with any of that. I think we're talking about the timing difference. I think, first of all, yes, you could have brought the rehab number to the annual town meeting, and we all thought that we should do the due diligence and see what it would be to do a new building and how much that would cost. But that in and of itself, it was even discussed at the town meeting, that would have different discussion points depending on what that number was, which was, if we're talking about new, we're not necessarily talking about that site, we're not necessarily talking about the same size. It, by nature, creates other discussion points. Okay? Now, you mentioned something at the beginning of your comment there, that maybe K should be reworked, or you have to decide between one and another, but that's not what K is. K is telling people, it's strictly, you vote for this, and then if you vote for this, we're going to have a debt exclusion. Because remember, passing town meeting is only, that should be the easy part.
Right.
Because passing the town ballot, that's a much harder role, because then people who are going to vote may not have even heard about this. They're just going to see the number, and if there's not enough information there, again, I want to make sure that we set ourselves up to be in the best position to succeed. And even with that, with the numbers, and depending what happens with the economy and everything, even at that, it's a tough proposition. But I think to put it earlier, not later, makes it even harder to pass town meeting, personally.
So I guess my question then is, what do you feel is, the extra education you're going to be able to give people between now and 6 months from now? Are you wanting to us now to go back again and look at the usage of this building, what's going to be used, what kind of building you want for a new building? That's not our committee. Our committee was to look at, you have this much square footage, you have this building, what's it going to be to rehab it?
Right.
Granted, we might have opened up a can of worms by saying, oh, let's look at what it would be to build new, but to us, that wasn't being fiscally prudent on it. But I don't feel that, I feel like that what you're looking at is that there are things that are going to open up if the vote is to do new. However, that's not part of us, this committee.
And I don't disagree with that.
And so
I
that's-
completely agree with you.
So perhaps, as like I say, perhaps since we have time before the warrant, there needs to be some wording in the article where we're looking at new versus, making a decision on, as you mentioned, making a decision on the building.
Yeah, but there's no such article that would be binding, right? So we could have a straw poll vote about what people want, but it's not going to be a binding vote, because binding votes don't work like that. So telling people, would you rather have A or B, is not something in another town meeting, if you don't have a money article and you haven't committed the money, that, another one couldn't override. So it doesn't really commit you to anything except a show of hands of people in that room at the time. It doesn't do what you think it does. That's the problem. Now, as far as your committee, I agree with you. If we look at, hey, maybe the new building doesn't have all the things in, maybe it isn't your committee, and that's fine. I mean, my goal isn't to say, okay, your committee's done, and we should vote on this right now because there's no further use for your committee. Again, the point of the committee was to get something that the town could move forward on and not have another, building that's in limbo. That's what we're trying to do. That's what at least I'm trying to do. I'm assuming everybody on this board is trying to do this, and I know you guys are trying to do. I guess we're differing in strategy. I don't think this strategy will get us to where we're going, and it's a big risk, because if it doesn't work, then we're nowhere. Then we're like at the very, very beginning again.
But, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mr. Alonso. A couple things. You mentioned sums of money 6 weeks out. I mean, I think we find ourselves in this pattern often where we have multiple warrant articles in front of us, and half of them are populated with dollar amounts and half of them aren't. And I think it's pretty common that we're engaged in this kind of discussion 6 weeks out from town meeting, because the warrant opens like 4.5 months after the previous town meeting closes. I think I find that to be a normal thing. I think that Mr. Blatt vocalized his, within the committee, there's a range of opinions about how we should go forward, and I think Mr. Blatt is presenting the consensus of the committee members. But ultimately, as just a resident of town, I think regardless of being on the committee, it's a matter, I think what you're saying is strategy for us as a board and what makes the most strategic sense. I don't see the difference between I think the only difference between having this vote in November versus having this vote in the spring is $500,000. That's what I think the only difference is. And so, again, what are we buying for $500,000? And I don't know if I don't think we are buying anything for $500,000 between now and the springtime. Are you willing to entertain a motion, Mr. Chair?
Well, see if anybody else has anything to weigh in.
Have somebody who wants to speak?
Mr. Passios.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street, also a member of the TC Passios Committee. Two very important points. As of the end of October, the funds that have been appropriated to study this are spent. That's it. We have no more money appropriated to do any more of the things that were suggested this evening that, what would a 30,000 square foot building cost? What would a 50,000 square foot building? There's no money appropriated for that. So that's what I think in the back of our minds, you guys need to decide on whether L is going to be able to set aside some more funds to continue that if we're not going to move forward with one of the other choices, or if the rehab flat out fails on the warrant, then the next article initially was intended to give us a dollar figure appropriated to do the engineering to bring together a completed project for a new build. It'd still have to go back to town meeting with the funding article for that. So, there's still a number of steps left, no matter what we do here, unless the funding for the rehab is approved. If that gets approved, we move forward. There was another point, and it slipped my mind. That was the most important part of it. Thank you.
Let me ask the town manager now, if, again, I think everybody, please correct me if I'm wrong, everybody on the board agrees that K and L should be linked together. And if we're looking at build design documents, I'm hearing the number I consistently hear put out is about $250,000. Do we have $250,000 to allot to this?
Not without a transfer from such thing as stabilization or a reserve account.
Right, because we haven't really built that in since the beginning, right?
Right.
So that's another problem. So again, we can't even go ahead with the design. We can go ahead on paper with a design that has no force of funding behind it, so that it doesn't matter if we pass it now anyway, because if we don't have the money to do it, then it doesn't matter.
So where's the money going to come from if it comes back up on the warrant in the spring?
We'd be able to prepare because it's a brand-new budget. This is the middle of a budget season. We'd be asking for $250,000 in the middle of the fiscal year.
So why are they bringing this up right now if we, all of a sudden, we don't have any money to fund it? We never had money to fund it, so what are we here for? I don't get that.
I don't think we're broke. I thought we had money as a town, and if we need to spend $250,000 to save ourselves $500,000, for waiting 6 more months and spend the money. I don't see the conflict. I guess the question is, how do we do this instead of why we can't? How do we get this done?
The one other source in the finance director is free cash once that's certified. It's unusual that we would use that in the fall. We usually reserve that for spring when we're looking, because that helps fund our capital plan. We put a percentage into stabilization, into OPEB. So that is another source.
For free cash, I remember hearing the report from Karen Brochu a few weeks ago. How much extra money do we have in free cash this year?
Well, it hasn't been certified yet, but the estimate is 2.6 million.
So $2.6 million in free cash. While unusual, I think we have $250,000.
Is it scheduled to be certified before special town meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Did you remember the other one?
No, I just want to ask a question on the numbers you're bouncing around right now. If I may, through you to the town manager, do we have unappropriated free cash in this year's budget?
No, because that closes out in June.
Okay, we've got something that's unappropriated in this year's budget, I believe.
Oh, the APR. The Pierce property.
60-some odd thousand there.
Yeah. That would have to,
It has to be reappropriated, correct?
right, but there would have had to been an article to
Rescind it.
Yeah.
rescind and reappropriate it.
So that money's just sitting there now, it's going to carry over to next year?
No, it would be eligible to be, the purpose changed at the spring town meeting, the annual town meeting.
I see that Mr. Beardmore on Zoom has patiently been waiting with his hand up. So, Mr. Beardmore,
Hold on, ask him to unmute.
hold on, we're unmuting you. Hold on a second.
Yeah.
We're not getting any audio in here.
We still can't hear you.
Did he type fast?
Can you,
It's showing as,
there we go.
Good.
You're set, Mr. Beardmore.
That was my fault, sorry. Peter Beardmore, 282 Pleasant Street. Thank you for taking my comments out of sequence. I'm a little bit amused by the financial discussion here, and thinking about re-architecting our budget using things that we haven't done to do something that brings a level of complexity that we haven't encountered, in my opinion, in recent history. And I respectfully disagree with Mr. Jeffries in terms of the simplicity of this decision. When we started this a couple of years ago, the expectation was that this was maybe a $10 to $12 million project, $14 million at best. Now it's 23. We started this project with the expectation that we had an envelope that we could fill, and we put all kinds of stuff into that envelope, and now we've got an Article K that is looking at building into that envelope or replicating that envelope an entirely new building. And there's a level of complexity there that we haven't encountered previously. The other level of complexity here is that, this isn't the only borrowing project that we're going to do this decade. We've got serious issues with Turkey Hill. Turkey Hill is going to cost a lot more than $23 million. And if we borrow this money and then borrow to deal with Turkey Hill, we could very well find ourselves, if interest rates go up, bumping up on a debt capacity issue, and violating our own financial policies. Also, if we deal with Turkey Hill, we have to deal with the logistics of where we're going to put stuff when we deal with Turkey Hill. There's a lot of complexities to this project that Article L, I believe, as we're describing it right now, need to consider. The reason why we did this article at the annual town meeting, to do this comparison, was just to understand if we were getting a good deal or not. Not to go down the path necessarily of considering a tear down and rebuild based upon that number. And I think Mr. Jeffries is taking this way too far. Again, I understand his intent, but I think we need to pump the brakes on this. We need a thorough discussion about this. Mr. Alonso is absolutely correct. There's all kinds of fear, doubt, and uncertainty that can be thrown at this project. I've just given you a few examples off the top of my head. And I'm telling you folks, if you go down this path, you may eke out a win at town meeting, but you're going to have a big problem at the ballot box. And ultimately, we want to find a solution that works for Lunenburg and that we can move forward with. And right now, I just don't think we're there. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Passios. In the meantime, while you're walking up, I'm going to go into Mr. Jeffries. Go ahead.
No, I appreciate Mr. Beardmore's comments. I always like to hear Mr. Beardmore's feedback, and more times than not, I agree with him. So it's certainly natural in the matter of discourse to disagree from time to time. I've talked to the superintendent about all this discussion about schools, and the superintendent has reassured me over and over again that there is no project in front of the town to build a new school. And I understand that it's in the back of a lot of people's minds that this may be something that we're going to need, but I would urge that that same zeal that we have about the potential needs of the schools in 10 years from now, that we should have that same zeal about the 300-something years this town has been in existence and still hasn't built a town hall. I mean, I don't, and I also would urge that we have, that for me, the discussion is a little more, part of this role is to look out for our employees. And it's the group in town that doesn't get enough advocacy across the town. The schools have parents who advocate for the needs of their students, who advocate the needs of the teachers. There's multiple people who work in the school department is enormous. There's a lot of advocates for the schools. We don't have a lot of advocates for our staff. And how long do we expect people to work in these buildings that aren't functioning for them? I think if you talk to any town employee who works in this building or in Ritter Building, they all have multiple complaints about the functioning of the building. Is the building healthy for them? The fact that you can smell dead rats in the walls every now and again. You have floors in the finance office downstairs that are bulging. If you go in the basement of this building, it looks like this building's going to fall over. I mean, there's not enough space to store things. Snow comes into the windows at the Ritter Building. I think we need to bring back the personal element to this, to say, how long are we going to keep leaving people in these crappy conditions until the time is mysteriously right? And the longer we wait, the more we're going to be facing additional building and facility needs. I think we have to just keep moving forward, and we need to do it at a pace that's quicker than we've been moving at.
Mr. Passios.
Yeah, Dave Passios again, member of the committee. One of the concerns I have about the previous comments about our debt capacity is that the longer we push off a big project that we're trying to move forward and get completed now, it pushes it closer to the next big one, and the next big one beyond that. If we bunch all three of those together, then yeah, we're going to bump up against our debt capacity, but we're going to have no choice because we're going to have to move forward. If we do this in increments, as we've been trying to do for 10 years, then our debt capacity spreads out a little bit better. Back when the public safety building, primary school, and library were all built in a relatively short period of time, it pushed us right up against our debt capacity. I see that happening again with something to do with town hall, the school's needs that are not being met at this point, and a need to do something in the future, and I don't say near future, but the future, with Turkey Hill Middle School. By the time you get done playing around with that, the new primary school is going to be on the docket. So we're going to have these all piled into a period of less than a decade, and our finances are going to be a shambles. Thank you.
Anybody have any other comments?
Okay.
You have another comment, Mr.
Yes,
Blatt.
I do. Yes, I do. So I basically, as a townsperson, I'm going to say, not as a committee member, have a little, the issue with L is to me, the purpose of the last article is now looking at it as you decided that you have an opportunity to build new. You've decided you're going to build new. Well, what do you want to do with it? I mean, there was a lot of folks that came to us asking us for room in this building, for space, for needs, for concerns, and there's a lot of concerns that we couldn't meet on this thing that people would like to be, that are also already bulging at the seams. And we have a chance to make a community building. It has town hall in it, schools, community, everything in it. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're making, everybody talks about town hall, but it is a community building as well that we try to develop as the TC Passios committee. Article L is once again a chance to say, okay, townsfolks, you decided that you want a community building. If you have a community building, what do you want to see in it? Once we've decided what's going to be in it, what the roughly is going to be at it and needed, then I feel like you can come up with paperwork and things like that. But I feel a town meeting, this special town meeting, we can decide on whether we're going to do rehab or new. And if they say no to rehab, we're voting to say, okay, we want to build new, and let's get together and decide what that new is going to be like. And then we can go and get a set of plans to what that new is going to be like, where you want it, because somebody mentioned that, that's the other can of worms that might open up, but making an educated not guess, but an educated decision on what exactly this community building should be. It's a chance to, as we mentioned, to move forward and keep moving forward. That's all we want to do as the committee. We feel that this special town meeting is a chance to move forward. To 6 months, why am I going to wait another 6 months to decide whether we're going to rehab this thing or not? Whether we're going to build new or not? We need to make a decision on this building is what we're looking to try to do with the committee. I go.
Mr. Chair, Mayor.
Mr. Franco.
This is the problem with articulate people arguing two sides of the case. You don't know what the hell to do. But I will say one thing. I do want to make one point, though. Just because, and this is the risk, just because K gets voted down doesn't mean the default position is that people decided that we're voting for new. They could vote to do neither. That's, you see, it's not an either, it's not strictly an either or. So you know, if K definitively, if voting down K definitively meant that we were building new on that site, then I'd see the point a little more. But they could just decide to do nothing, and so that's the risk. I don't know where I'm going with this. I just wanted to make that point, but...
No, I understand. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's always the underlying risk, I think, with all of this, is how do we get to keep moving in a forward direction? And I think the answer is community center. You know, I think our society, just another point, our society is shifting. You look at kids these days, they're all on their phones all the time. You know, I mean, and the idea behind a multi-generational building, that's cultural, and that's for our town. And that's for years to come. You know, that creates in the center of our town a location, a multi-generational building in the center of our community that helps remind us in an era that's going to increasingly become more separate, that this is where we all come together. And I think it's going to have even more relevance in 50 years from now than it probably does today. Mr. Chair, if you're willing to entertain a motion, I'm willing to make 3 motions.
Make 3 motions. Well, how about we start with 1 motion?
Correct. One motion at a time.
Oh, okay.
So I move for the select board to add article, I'm going to refer to the article as a sign note, as by the letters that they're presented in front of us. I move for the select board to add Article J to the special town meeting warrant.
Yeah, I think we all accepted that, but okay, we can make it formal.
Second, that one's easy.
Any further discussion on hearing the, well, we didn't vote. We did it on a straw poll, but he's making an official vote. So this is just to hear the report of the TCP Building Design Committee at the meeting. So all those in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, unanimous.
I move for the select board to add Article K to the special town meeting warrant.
I'd like to make a point on that before that motion is considered. I think that one cannot be voted on unless we agree that L is going to go with it.
Okay, and then let me withdraw that motion. I'll modify this. I move to add K and L to the special town meeting warrant.
Do I have a second?
K subject to being able to amend L.
Correct.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
So that, just to be clear, it can be amended?
Well, the wording could be amended.
Right, well, that's important.
Well, I mean, you can't reword it so the intent is different. So the intent on L is to raise money to fund a design and engineering requirement. So the number can be added and some other things may be able to be modified, but the general gist of L would have to remain the same. You can't surprise people by putting in a placeholder and then putting something totally different there.
Let me ask this question. Thank you for that, but let me ask this question as well. Supposing the town does vote to accept L, does that change, or does that trigger a new committee?
Well, we would have to, that's what I was just asking the town manager. So the select board is who created the TCP Building Design Committee. So not town meeting. So we have the ability to change their charge at any point. That would require a change in charge.
By a vote?
And by us, by the select board vote, not a town meeting vote. So we could change what their charge is. So one of the reasons I asked the town manager that is because some of the objection was, well, if we don't do this, then their committee, once this money is spent, there's nothing to do because it's not their charge to look at a new building. But we can easily change that and make their charge to look at a new building. So that's easily within our purview as a 5-member select board to do that. The town meeting did not create their committee, we did.
Right.
So that's K and L with the ability to amend both or either.
Discussion, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Franco.
Now, if K fails and L goes through, there's no vehicle without changing the charge of the committee to implement L, correct? So should we, at this point, because we're going to do some amending within the current spirit of L, but what I'm about to propose might be outside the spirit of L. Should there be now some agreement as part of voting on this that if K is denied and L passes, that the charge of the TC Passios committee will be expanded to implement L?
Yes, I'm in agreement with that.
I would imagine that would be true. Sure.
I agree that would be prudent to do that, but I don't think it's necessary to do it now because the select board could reserve the right. We could take that on if we so chose, but often we choose to delegate the committee. So I don't know that it's necessary to have that.
Yeah. I mean, we could do it. We could do it before the special town meeting if we want.
Sure. Well, let's expressly agree here then for the record that we envision that as part of the purview of what we might do if K fails and L passes. So it's no surprise.
In the hypothetical world,
yes,
if L gets on the town meeting warrant and L would pass, I would certainly vow that I would not block changing the charge. I would certainly vote in favor of the charge to forward a town meeting vote. That's if those two things happen, yes.
Okay.
So just a final point for me. If the numbers come in from the consultant, as we've been promised, and everything's, and we have the information we need to make a decision, I'm more than happy to support these. But I don't think we have to, wring our hands over it. If we don't get the information, we can just vote these down. You say we don't have the information, we should.
Well, you mean pass over them?
Pass over.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Well, we could, I guess.
I was going to mirror the same comment that Todd just made. I feel exactly the same way. The other thing I would say is, and I personally feel some responsibility. I'm taken aback by the fact that we didn't even think about funding this. And this has been going on for so many years. I feel, as I said last time we spoke, I feel your frustration because it seems like we're just spinning our wheels here. I mean, I've heard talk about, what if they do vote for a new school or a new building? Is it going to be a smaller one, a bigger one? Is it going to be the same? Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you spend hours and hours, or days, or weeks, months trying to determine what the space needs are in this building? You did that, right?
We've done that, and actually, that's part of the original study we had. We have that data that shows the folks that we were able to put in that building and the folks who still wanted space, what they were looking for too. Right. So that data is available for whatever happens past L.
Okay, so that being said, my question is then, why would you, if you built a new building, why would you want to change that? You've already done that work. You know what you need. You're either going to rehab a building or build a new one, but you know what the space needs are already.
I know what the space needs are for the square footage that we had. However, there were more folks than we were able to get into that building that expressed an interest in the building. That's what we're saying. So and I agree with you that if you're going to say, okay, let's build new, this is what we're going to build, let's go forward, that's fine. However, I just also look at it as, if you're saying you're going to build new, what else could you do with it? You know, if it's new? Because we only had, what was it, 30, how many square feet is the building?
55,000.
55,000 square feet to work with, and a certain footprint to work with, and with doing as trying not to do as much, you know, just complete demolition. This is a chance now to say, okay, I got a clean slate. If you have a clean slate, what is the best thing for Lunenburg as a community? What's the best thing for the future? What's something that's going to last us 60, 100 years from now that people are still going to say, I'm enjoying this building?
All right, so going forward, we vote to build a new building. Isn't that part of the design and engineering of the building, is deciding at that point?
That is correct. And I agree 100%.
I don't understand what the problem is then.
No, what do you mean? When you were talking about the design and everything of the building, what are you talking about? The work they've already done?
When you design a building, you determine space needs.
Right.
All right, so why are we questioning whether or not we're going to have to change?
Well, because when we were given a building envelope and a building footprint, they were like, okay, how do you use the building we already have, and how it can be best used for school, municipal, and community purposes is a lot different problem than we have nothing and we're going to build something from scratch. What do we need the new building to have? Not, we have the building, how do we use it? The question is, we have nothing and we get to build it from the bottom up. What do we need it to have?
Right, well, isn't that part of the design of the building?
Yes.
Determining what you need?
Yes.
Right, that would...
All right, so I don't understand what would, in other words, what would slow this process down going forward if they decided to vote for L. I don't get it. The other thing is, and you just said it, there's no option for another address, right? You fear that might come up.
Well, it was expressed at the last town meeting. There was some discussion about folks had emotions about whether that was the proper spot for this type of building.
Right.
And that's why we do feel that's something that, whether it's, you folks as a board make that decision, that's what we would prefer, that was put on the table, that is the space this is going to happen at.
Well, we don't have the ability to make that determination. All we can make is a recommendation. The people who determine if that's the right spot are the people who vote at town meeting and the people who vote at the ballot box. So we can say all we want. If this was unanimous and said, you know what, we think it should be there are 7,000 voters who could say, yeah, I take your recommendation, but I don't agree with it. So.
Okay. If I can also add to that, I mean, I've heard the same conversation, Mr. Marino, and I mean, in all fairness, no matter how many times I hear that that's a school campus, it doesn't make it true. That the town has a significant portion of land sitting in the middle of town, and then it has this building and literally the footprint it's sitting on, and it has an acre and a half over there, and that's it. That's what we got here in the center of town. And at no point in time did the town ever say that one big parcel is a school campus only. But I do know that there are plenty of people who feel that way. But, I mean, we only have so much land, and we can't just say, hey, because we have 2-3 nice schools over here, let's commit 100 acres or whatever it is to be schools forever and ever and ever. I think that the town still has an interest and still technically owns a portion of that land, and that. So I think we're going to be boxed in on this decision anyway. I don't see that there are many options, but as I said earlier, I think we need to have that discussion formally to vet all those options and say what can and cannot happen on these parcels of land.
So was there a motion? So there was a motion to put K and L on, and I believe Mr. Dwyer seconded it. For all the reasons I gave earlier, I won't rehash all of them. I think it's a bad strategy. I think there's no time to market this right, and I think it would go in the wrong direction, so I am clearly going to vote against it. Go ahead.
I've been on the fence on this thing for a while. I'm going to put a little faith in that there's going to be a very solid case at the town meeting, and the idea that we could also pass over the question if the numbers that we see in advance, that is an escape hatch. I'm going to, with some hesitancy, support this going on the, so I'm reversing myself from a couple of weeks ago, but I'm doing it with a good deal of hesitancy, but I am doing it.
Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll do a vote. All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed is myself. So it will be on.
Thank you very much, Jim.
Thank you. Okay, let's go right to the, oh no, the finance director went already. I'm saying, she's still here. I'm not used to her staying around for other discussion. So discussion on FY22 Select Board goal on Old Primary School and the timeline for request for demolition. I think you, Mr. Jeffries, asked for this on the agenda, so.
I did. So I was just, the discussion I was hoping to have tonight on this is really as it's worded to see what our, we have an article, let me take that back. We've been moving in the direction of converting the old primary school area to being a park. And so a couple of things I think make sense. Number one is to have a meeting with the Parks Commissioners to discuss that with them formally and to hear what their considerations are. And then I think the other, and I'd like to know what kind of a timeline for that. And then the second idea as well is to submit the request to tear down the building and to come up with a timeline to do that as soon as possible.
Did we get, is our RFP, have we gotten anything on that?
It's due tomorrow.
It's due tomorrow, so, okay.
Have you had any submissions so far?
No, but that's not unusual.
Yep, I know.
Oh,
Last
really?
minute.
Yeah.
Okay, so for myself, I want to see, first of all, are we even proceeding with the RFP? Because if we can't get another person, we can't forward that and get designs, we're going to be in a bad spot. Anyway, I'll open it up to the board.
So when will we know?
Next Tuesday, we'll know. Well, we'll know tomorrow, I guess. But since we're talking about it tonight, it'll be next week that we could talk about the timeline. No, certainly we can put in the request. I don't know that anybody on this board has any other direction that would give them to not do the request for demolition, because I think we're all on the same page, but I don't want to speak for everybody either.
I think the only other option that I would be in favor of is the gutting of the building and making it into like a farmer's market as part of the whole.
Internally.
Yes.
Right, and I have heard informally from the chair that they discussed it at their meeting. I have not seen a vote, but they would not be in favor of that, as it would be against the APDC guidelines. Now, that is through a non-official channel.
Yeah.
But it sounded like that's what the APDC had decided. Now, maybe we should get a request from them, is that their position officially, and if that's true, that would note that even trying to do that has met unsuccessfully, so.
I think we should do that, because I was under the impression that they were all excited about that option. And so if they're not, yeah, let's just move forward.
Well, I can reach out and I will ask for, I don't know when their next meeting is, but I will ask if that is an official decision. And if it is so, can they let me know that it is official, that they voted on that, because that would obviously inform our decision too.
Yeah.
I mean, couldn't that conversation also happen as part of the request for demolition? I mean, I want to get that clock rolling as soon as possible.
Well, I don't blame you. This is, again, to your point, every day that we delay these projects is costing us a lot of money. And I'm with you. Let's just move on this thing as quick as possible.
I still want to hear whether that's an official decision, but yeah, and I'm not sure I understand why they would go that route, but I know it's unofficial, but they'd rather just flatten the whole thing than some sort of compromise plan. It's all or nothing, so.
I don't want to speak for them, so.
We would,
We can table it till next week, and then we can make the decision next week after we hear.
I think we should table it till next week. We'll have a little more information and it's pertinent to the conversation.
Can we put this on next week?
Yeah, I'd love to hear what their position is.
All right, so I will write an email to the chair of the APDC.
so as far as timeline, while you're making that note, Mr. Chair, as far as timeline goes, so I'm clear, we're gonna hear back from them on what their thoughts are on that building. I mean, we're gonna still have to, one thing that I think of is we're gonna have to invest money in engineering if we want that building to still stand up. That's not gonna be a cheap feat. So, and then we're gonna need to have that, so we're gonna need to invest money in that to be able to go to the town to even move forward with that being an option.
I don't understand what you just said.
All right, so I'll word that differently. In order, if the plan is to keep the building standing, we're going to need appropriated funds or some kind of money to be able to get an engineering analysis to figure out how that can actually be done. And then we're still going to need to go before the APDC, I would imagine, because we'd be altering the appearance of the building in some kind of way. So there's still going to be some kind of process before the APDC. And then there's still going to be the need for more funding to be able to actually do the work on the property. So in other words, if we keep the building standing, we're adding in another step. Oh, that's all I'm saying, is that we're adding in another step.
If we come up with if we came up with a compromise that we talked about potentially, that make the building into some kind of pavilion building. Is that what you're talking about?
I'm saying that we don't know if that's possible, given how the building is constructed, until the town invests money in looking into that. That's what I'm saying. So it's hard to have that discussion no matter, even if we have an agreement with him that that's the direction we want to go in, we're still going to need to get some money for that.
Well, no matter what we do, we're going to need money for it, because no matter what we do at the park, whether we destroy the building or the cost of destroying the building and the cost of keeping a part of it up as a pavilion is, yes, both of them are going to require money. And then doing all the site work after that is the site work. So, so yeah, I mean, anything is going to cost money.
Yeah. I think that, as I recall the discussion, I think that a majority of the board was in favor of that being an option. If that was an option of moving in that direction, I'm not in favor of that. So next week, we're going to have this, we're going to hear back.
I'm hoping that I'm going to hear back. They may say, I don't know when their next meeting is, so I'm going to try to get a clarification and see what that is and see what the answer is. So I will send them that email and say, is this the official position of it? So,
I mean, could we move forward with a request for demolition anyway? I guess I'm asking everyone else. Is everyone else in favor? I know we're going to have this discussion next week, but if we don't have an answer next week, what is everyone's thoughts about moving forward with a request for demolition?
Move forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, the other point on this too is just to get it out there if they're watching the meeting, but I mean, if they're giving us the choice between preserving that building in its entirety or demoing it and not compromising on some sort of like pavilion plan or whatever, which is what I like, that idea, and I'm totally in support of that idea, then I say demo the thing and let's get the thing in, let's get that request in there.
And I'm in favor of compromising with them while we have a demolition request sitting in front of them. That I think we're working around the issue, but I'm in favor of moving forward and saying this is what we're asking for, and then now let's talk about how we're going to tear it down or if there is some potential to salvage. But I think that should all be together in the same process.
yeah, well, we're going to find out the answer.
Okay.
Whatever their answer is, we'll make a decision next week. So I'm not going to delay it anymore either, so.
Okay.
And also, I'd want to know what happens tomorrow. Do we even have somebody looking at this design or not?
Yeah. Thank you.
Ambulance billing hardship request. Welcome back to our meeting, Madam Town Manager.
I'm listening. So this item was requested by the fire chief in review of a request from a patient, and for confidentiality purposes, we're not discussing names or information related to it, but just it requires a vote of the board. This information was sent to the board.
Was submitted to everybody, yes.
Yeah.
So, has everybody read it?
Yes.
It was sent as an email, not in the Google
So that it
Drive.
would not be,
I must not.
It was sent in an email detailing, and what is the amount?
I believe it's $396.
So basically, we're looking for,
you got it.
I'm looking for it from Heather.
$350.
so we're looking to forgiving or erasing $350 from a hardship patient. So it is not something that doesn't happen from time to time, so. I would entertain a motion regarding that request, of that hardship request.
I move to approve that.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none. Approval of minutes, September 14th and 21st. Has everybody reviewed those?
Yes.
Anybody have any other modifications that they haven't gotten in time? If not, I will entertain a motion regarding those two sets of minutes of September 14th and the 21st.
Mr. Chair, can we take them one at a time after?
Oh, you want?
I have to abstain from the 14th. I was
Okay,
absent.
gotcha. All right, so let's take September 14th.
I move to approve the minutes of September 14th as presented.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and one abstention. Okay, minutes of September 21st.
I have to abstain from these
Yep.
ones.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and one abstention. Okay. Warrants, no warrants? Wow. Action items. Any action items from anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. I have a couple.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. One thing, this one's kind of simple. These ones are kind of simple. A few of these are simple. So one of the things I recognized when we were out and about when representing the town outside of the community at other boards and committee meetings, that, or if you're going into a classroom like the town manager does, and I know that we expect to get some invitations coming in the springtime. And anyway, one of the things that I'm recommending is for us to have some business cards. It came up when we were at the Central Mass Small Business Association reception that they had for all local leaders. You know, and I realized while you're there, everyone's asking for your business card, and I'm like, I don't even have a town official business card. So these ones are kind of simple. So a few things like business cards, having some kind of name tags, so that way when we represent our community, these are low-cost items, but I wanted to bring them up to see if the board's in agreement with moving forward with a small order, so that way we can have these items.
I don't know. I've been trying to get contractors to give me estimates on a garage I'm trying to build, and I have businesses who don't have business cards. So in all my 15 years of being a selectman, I don't think I've ever been asked nor felt at a loss because I didn't have a Board of Selectmen business card, personally. But that's me. I'll leave it up to the board.
Well, I won't get involved in this conversation. I'll take the T-shirt, though.
So I don't think these are high dollar items, but I know that we have to discuss that officially in order for these to be ordered.
Well, it sounds like there's money in the budget for business cards, right? I think we're good. All right. So, I mean, it's not something that had occurred to me before, but I don't think it's a bad idea. So, sure. I'm on board with it.
Would I just make one clarification?
Yes.
Anyone who does not wish to have business cards, just make that part of the order. We won't order unnecessarily.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I move that we get Michael Ray business cards. All right?
And you have one set per term. So you can't have vice chair, chair, or anything else on it, because if you change, we're not printing other ones.
I can make this, and this, you might think this is silly, but we did this at the police department. We ordered cards with all the right information on them, instead of your name, a line, so that we handed them to the patrolman, so they could write their name in it. That way you only have to order, you don't have to order names.
It's just a form, yeah.
I'm down for any option.
In 27 years, when Mike retires from the Board of Selectmen,
There's no way.
Are you looking for the linen letterhead too with the watermark?
Oh my goodness, you guys. All right. So that was for the business cards. All right, let's see. And then the name tag, all right, we got that. I already brought up about to the town manager about having a link on the town website, and that's been adjusted, if I remember.
Not yet. That's on my list to do.
Okay. And so the request was to have a link with the town website that directs to the locations of senior-only housing. So that way, that's people who are looking in that market, that it's easy to identify where it's at. I went to a school committee meeting. I mentioned this a couple months ago, and when the school was talking about the new civics requirements. And so I'm asking if we can extend an invitation to Lisa LeBlanc, who's part of the school committee, not part of the school committee, part of the school community, to discuss how we can support them with their curriculum on their new civics requirements.
Sure, we can invite people. Sounds good.
Okay.
Do you want to reach out to her and
I can reach out.
let us know when she wants to be on the agenda? We can do that.
I can do that. I can reach out to Lisa. All right. The other one was to invite, and this probably really goes to you, Lou, for economic development. If there's an opportunity with the agricultural community, AgCom, the committee, to meet with them to discuss how we can better meet their needs.
Okay, so you want to put out an invitation to AdCom, you're saying? To come in, or-
An invitation, or just kind of a, if there's something that they've identified that we can be doing that could be helpful to them, it would be nice to know what that is.
Okay.
Like, sometimes people feel like if only someone else did X, Y, and Z. I don't know if they have those feelings and kind of just what they are. And then the last one is certificate of occupancy for the TCP and Ritter. When we changed the use of TCP from being a school to its current use, and when we changed Ritter from being a library to its current use, did we ever go about getting a new certificate of occupancy for that change of use?
I don't know the answer to that, so I'll find out.
Okay. All right, and that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Committee reports. Mr. Marino, any?
None.
Mr. Dwyer? Mr. Franco?
Yes, economic development. Unfortunately, the September 23rd meeting, second meeting in a row that was canceled shortly before the meeting, so.
Okay. Mr. Jeffries?
Yes. TCP Design Committee has met, as we mentioned earlier. This isn't a lengthy update. They're meeting every week this month as we head towards special town meeting related to the articles that were put before, and also related to the work from the design company on getting that second cost estimate. So I think we're all fully informed on where they're at based on the meeting we just had. Mart did meet. There's really nothing too substantial that came out of that meeting. It was just kind of they meet quarterly, and that was just kind of a quarterly checkup. Everything's going well. They're getting some new buses in the fleet, but otherwise everything was good. Financing, everything with them funding-wise is good. Library trustees, a little bit more here. So I've mentioned in previous committee reports that the library trustees started a strategic plan, and this is something that's done every 5 years or so, and it's to identify their needs in the community and figure out how they can better meet the needs of the community. So as part of this process, they brought on a consultant. They had a bunch of focus groups. I know that I participated in that. The town manager participated in that, as well as several other members of the community participated in these focus groups. They then took that data from those focus groups to figure out, hey, what are these needs that we're identifying? And then ultimately, they had a subcommittee that worked through this, and they had a special meeting last week to finalize this strategic plan. It's a 41-page document. It's rather lengthy, but the gist of what they say, and this is really what's before us, or what they're asking of us, is they're looking for more funding. One of the things that came out during this process was that the library is closed on Fridays, and the goal of the library is to meet. There's multiple goals in the library, but the overarching, I think, feeling is that they want to be able to meet members of the community where they are. They want to be able to fill in those multiple gaps. The library does a lot more than just rent books that you can borrow books from. They also have a whole bunch of movies and other things. They also have special programs, especially for school-age children. They have a bunch of seminars that happen there. There's meeting space that occurs there. So they have exhibits. As we see, the stuff from the Historical Commission also has different meetings and such that occurs there. They're also, when people are looking for jobs, they can also be a huge resource for that. One of the things that came out from members of the community was that the library is open during regular business hours for the most part, and that it would be more beneficial if they were open on Fridays. And so that seemed to be an overwhelming theme. So the library, as part of the strategic plan, identified, well, what are exactly those hourly needs? And they, in their plan, they're looking for an additional $34,900 roughly. So $35,000, and that will allow them to have additional staffing hours to meet these additional programming needs, and then also to be able to be open for the additional day of the week. So they are asking for this to be before the town at the special town meeting coming up this fall. I do understand that there are certain limitations to that occurring. That is not normal. The normal funding source for operational increases happens during the annual town meeting regular budgeting process. The library is aware of that, and they're still asking if they can get an additional $35,000 in funding so that a year, and prorated for the rest of the year, so that way they can increase their hours on Fridays.
Okay. Obviously, we can't talk about that because it's not an agenda item, so they can go through the town manager and we can discuss it then if they've not approached it. FinCom met a couple weeks ago. They met with the schools a little bit, and then also with the town manager, and basically set up the structure for their the upcoming budget cycle. So they'll be setting up appointments as they come about for the budget requests per department. And obviously, as the town manager said at the beginning, they have their public hearing for the special town meeting on what?
Next Thursday,
Next
the
Thursday.
14th.
Thank you. And then the next meeting is this Thursday, the 7th, at 7. Old business, discussion of the special town meeting warrant articles and possible votes on the warrant article recommendations. Is there anything of note that people want to discuss on that? Madam Town Manager, is there anything you want us to discuss on any of that?
Let me just highlight some changes since the last meeting.
Okay.
So there's 2 copies of this in your Google Drive. Just if you hover, it's the October 5th one, if you can pull up, not the 28th.
Okay.
So, the easement article, there's an additional easement article on the warrant, and that would be for,
What's the letter?
sorry, make sure I'm reading the right one.
Flat Hill Road,
Sorry, Jim?
Flat Hill Road, is that the one you're talking about?
It's-
M?
Yes, this is for temporary and permanent easements for the Flat Hill Road culvert area. We discovered that we need those, even though there would be no dollar value associated with that. So was added to the warrant.
Okay.
Go back up.
If I may ask you, I see that there's a bunch of options here, but if not gifted is the intention What is the eminent domain process like?
That would not be, it's just part of the wording of the article that town council
Okay.
said should be included, but it would not be.
If we're absolutely not going to pursue that, why do we have to have it in there?
It's, covers all bases essentially, but.
So we don't have another one in case anything happens.
Got it.
Yeah. But the motion would be very, specific to how those are acquired. The letters N and O are from the Conservation Commission. Letter N is, that was a previous article that was voted. It just referenced the wrong parcel, map and parcel. And O, right now, so that is a owner's unknown parcel, so there'll be more discussion on that next meeting. It would need to be known who the real owner is, and that would have require title search. So P was submitted by the Park Commission for adding Marshall Park to the sewer district. And that's related to, they're looking at two options, a septic system on that property, but this would provide another option to put sewer at that property because the line runs by that property.
Okay.
Q, R, S, and T are all from the planning board. And there's some minor adjustments in their in the bylaws. And
It is very concerning that this warrant is getting very lengthy, by the way.
well, this is it. And it could, if any articles are taken off too, then that would. And lastly is the Historical Commission, and this is going back up to letter H.
Yep.
They resubmitted language for the demolition delay bylaw after the discussion they had with the board.
We have a meeting with them next week, right?
Yes,
So
they're coming
please
next
reread that,
Tuesday.
and we will discuss that.
Are there any questions on any of those that I can either look into or answer tonight?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Discussion on Senior Work-Off Program Committee and the creation of a policy, possibly a vote on the policy. So this was before us, I think, at the last meeting.
Yes.
Did anybody have any further comments, questions, et cetera?
Were there any other modifications other than the dollar amount?
No. No.
Okay.
So I think it's ready to be voted upon. So I would entertain a motion regarding the Senior Work-Off Program Committee and the creation of the policy as provided to the board this evening.
Yeah, I move to approve the senior property tax work-off, the updated senior property tax work-off program policy.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? None.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, yes. Okay, so our next meeting is next Tuesday, and then the 19th and the 28th, we're going to have a meeting with the Finance Committee at their meeting for Chapter 70, not Chapter 9, Chapter 70, sorry. Okay, any public comment from the public? Mr. Passios, we're going to have to get you to sit closer.
Walk faster. Now, the game's already well underway.
Yeah.
Dave Passios, 56 Whiting Street. I'm going to make a comment in regards to parks, but I'm making it as an individual because this hasn't been discussed with the Parks Commission. A comment was made earlier in regards to, during your conversations, I believe, about the old primary property, and parks was brought up. I want to caution this board that you don't go down the same rabbit hole that a previous select board did and made commitments and plans for a piece of property under their care and custody and expect that Parks is going to jump on board down the road. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment from the board?
None.
Seeing none. Okay, we do have an executive session this evening. It's, and I want to entertain a motion to go into executive session to adjourn after exiting executive session pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 30, Section 21, Paragraph 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, which I do. This is regarding the Municipal Employees Union and the Fire Union.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
This is a roll call vote, so let's do that. Mr. Marino?
Aye.
Mr. Dwyer?
Aye.
Mr. Franco?
Aye.
Mr. Jeffries? Aye for myself. Good night, everyone. We will see you next Tuesday. Until then, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. Good night.